So, welcome to the Kickass Midlife Method podcast. And I'm joined by some women from the community live, and we're talking today about limiting beliefs in midlife, those kind of hidden things that you tell yourself that you're like, the behavior you do that are really stopping or preventing either your fat loss, your strength journey, your energy, or it could be something else in midlife as well, just because of something that you take to be true, which is not true of yourself. So, in summary, we're going to be looking at limiting behaviors and beliefs and what they are, why midlife women often carry them without realizing, how they shape your choices around food, training, and health, and a lot more besides, actually. How to identify the ones ruining your life, because we might maybe not be aware of them, but how to reflect and identify what they are, and then practical ways you can actually challenge and change them. And then we're going to have a short breakout discussion amongst three or four groups where you're going to discuss them amongst yourselves. So, what is a limiting behavior? So, a limiting behavior is something you repeatedly do that just keeps reinforcing this identity you have about yourself, or something that you tell yourself. So, it feels totally normal. It just feels like, well, that's something that I've built up through history, so it's true. I know myself. But that behavior reinforces your identity, reinforces behavior. So, for an example, I can't lift heavy, or and I'm going to pull some things that I've had conversations about lately with people in the community. There's a ceiling on my progressive overload. What that actually ends up meaning, another really common one is, I have a bad back, so therefore I can't do X, Y, Z. So what that ends up looking like is you constantly lift lighter weights than you should, maybe do higher reps or change the rep range to make it fit, no progressive overload, no leading into that challenge. And I'm talking about challenge in a way that actually develops your muscle. So it means obviously your muscle never increases, your mindset around it never changes because you're stuck in this same pattern. Your strength never improves, and then your metabolism doesn't really adapt. Another example of this can be, my kids won't eat that. So you continue eating the kinds of foods that are not necessarily nourishing or healthy for you or your family, and or it becomes embedded in the way you eat and they've left home. They're not even at home and you're still eating in a way that you say, well, the kids wouldn't eat anything else. And then limiting beliefs. So a story you repeatedly told yourself that now feels like a fact. So usually starts as something someone told you, something that happened to you once that then becomes embedded, and you've maybe not challenged that again because you're scared of doing it, and therefore it's just become embedded as fact. Something society expects of women. So women can't run fast, women can't do this, that kind of thing. An example, I don't think she's here. This might sound a bit weird. I only drink pints. There's somebody who said that. I only drink pints. I've always had a slow metabolism. I hear that one tons. I'm not very disciplined. I can't be consistent. Terrible with money. I'm too old to build muscle. That could also be I'm too old to change, dot, dot, dot. My body never changes no matter what I do. I've never been sporty. So none of these are facts. They're just narratives that you've told yourself. And then after 40, 50 years, you've just believed them, and you've let them kind of dictate your behavior and how you do things. So, how do you identify your limiting beliefs? Um, as I said, most of us don't recognize them because we're so busy in everyday life, and they're just part of normal thoughts. So you don't even think that they're limiting at all. So if you're listening for things like, I'm not a gym person, I'm just someone who does this, I'm terrible at being this, identify that language and that belief system. So look for that permanent language. I'm always this, I'm never, it's just the way I am, I can't, I always give up after a few weeks. If you say that, then you're kind of creating that outcome. Like I can never eat. I'm always full. I can never eat that much. I can never have that protein shake. I don't like protein shakes. I don't like how they taste, etc. So notice where you stop trying. So limiting beliefs often show up as an invisible ceiling. So never lifting heavier than 10 kilos because in your mind you're like, well, that's my limit. I can't lift heavier than that. Um, if you're looking to lose body fat and maybe you start losing body fat and then it dips up again, and then you stop and you consistently do that after week 3 or week 6, whatever it is. Avoiding strength training altogether because you're like, well, I don't like strength training, so I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do running, and not investing in your health. You've unconsciously made a decision where your limit is, and therefore you're limiting yourself. So, might sound obvious. Why do limiting beliefs hold you back? Your brain's designed to prove you right. So, and this I see quite often. If you believe that you're inconsistent, so not necessarily in this example, but if you believe, for instance, I'm inconsistent, what your brain notices is not all the workouts you have done; it notices all the missed ones. It ignores all the success and all the habits you have made. So, similarly, if we're talking about consistency around nourishing eating, it will recognize the biscuit you had, but not all the other things that you have had that are really nourishing, and therefore you give up for that one biscuit, forgetting that you've had, 80% of the rest of the day or the week or whatever has been pretty good. So identity drives your behavior far more powerfully than motivation. So this is why information alone doesn't change people, identity does. So how do you break it? So firstly, so you might want to be thinking about taking notes. You name the belief. So firstly, you've got to be really good about reflecting and be really honest with yourself about what is it that you always say to yourself which is not really true. It's just a belief that you've built up. Then you challenge it. Is it true? Or is it something you've just repeated for years and years that maybe you did something when you were younger that, for instance, I have people who, when I taught in boot camps, who would come to the boot camp and said, "No, I can't do that movement." And I'd be like, "Why?" And they said, "Oh, I hurt my arm like 10 years ago." I'm like, what did you do 10 years ago? Oh, I don't know. What did the physio? Oh, I don't know. And for 10 years, they've been avoiding a movement because somewhere, something in their head said, oh, I shouldn't do that movement. And all that means is your body becomes really imbalanced. So question it, is it true? Examine the origin, and then think whether that is true, and then create new evidence. So if we're talking about lifting stronger as an example, lift heavier weights. We're not talking about lifting the heaviest weight. We're talking about progressive overload. So you're doing it within limits that you build your confidence and your strength. Obviously, for you listening live, you guys, you all know this, following a structured plan. So you're removing the guesswork. I say that though, and there are still some of you in the program who are still saying, oh, well, I'm not quite sure how heavy I should be lifting. That's progressive overload. You are every week thinking, increasing it a little by little, and then gaining your confidence mentally and physically with that lift. So it's never about staying at the same weight that you're lifting at the moment. That's how you know yourself about how much you should be lifting. Tracking your progress, which is part of that, and surround yourself with women who are doing it. So a lot of you in the program you're surrounded by people in the community who are doing this very thing. And then how do you change your identity? Instead of I can't remain consistent, it's just about changing that language, and then reflecting on that language and reflecting on how you've carried that out in your behavior. So I'm someone learning how to train consistently. So thinking of, instead of like, what are the sessions I've missed? Concentrating on thinking, what are the sessions I have made? What are the sessions I have done even when I didn't want to do it? And thinking that is a massive breakthrough in my limiting belief that I can never be consistent.